this goofy hair. I feel like Dennis the Menace, but I don't know what the newer one's called, like Bobby's World or something, but that's not even new anymore. This is part 2. The other time I talked about what is a vocation, so I think it's pretty natural or consequential. The next piece that's important is to say, well, what is not a vocation? First and foremost, I have been talking about a lot of stuff that I have learned by reading, by talking with, priests. The book that I may quote a lot is To Save 1,000 Souls, because a lot of the stuff that I really, really thought was extremely helpful for discernment is also really important to know. Just everybody needs to know. The Second Vatican Council talked about a sort of hierarchy of the particular vocation or the secondary vocation. And I just reread that part from that book the other day, and I thought, you know what? That's a really interesting reminder, because vocations, again, religious order, priesthood, or marriage. And actually the laity is the way they break down the third one. And the third part, that the laity is subdivided into marriage and, just a generous, they call it generous single life. So a generous single life. Anyway, what this one I wanted to talk about was what is a vocation not? A lot of people you may hear, and again, I'm still trying to pretend, like if I could talk to the 18-year-old version of myself, or the 22. Like a lot of these statistics now are saying around 20, 18 to 25 really is probably the ideal spot. But what is a vocation not? A vocation is not you settling. You would not be settling to do what God is asking you to do. Again, vocare means call. You are being called. Well, a call that you receive, it starts from God, and you are responding yes or no. So what is a vocation not? It's not a job. If you're married, you are not only married when you're not at work. You are not only married when you go out together. Some people do that with that particular vocation. And that's part of the problem. How many women or men would ever start talking to another individual if they fully understood, look, I'm married all the time. If my spouse does not seem to remember that they're married to me, it does not change the fact that my vocation is God's call to me. And I had the opportunity to say no, and I did not. Now, I understand there are abusive, despicable situations that you may need to separate from. But you have been joined. Even if you are unequally yoked, you have still been joined. And I know that giving that kind of a lecture, it's so easy for people to say, well, you don't understand because you don't have children. You don't understand because you've never been married. That does not mean that I do not understand. Number one, I know what my friends and my family have gone through most of their life. From both the vocation and the advocation of marriage. I'm not just a casual observer. My very existence is related to the vocation of marriage not working out the way it's supposed to be, not the way it was intended. When Jesus was talking to one of the Pharisees, I don't think they mentioned to him. He was talking to one of the Pharisees who was trying to trap him. So who would this lady be married to? And he reminded them, Moses only changed God's call because your hearts were weak. Now, we're all sinners. I am probably one of the worst people at running from my vocation. I spent so much time running from my vocation that I didn't even realize it wasn't even what I was being asked. It was what I thought a vocation was. And that's why I really want to mention this. What did I think a vocation was? Well, I thought that it was something that I was being forced to do, and I didn't want to do it. See, want is kind of a problem. When you read the 22nd Psalm or the 23rd Psalm, if you understand that's a whole nother thing. If God is your God, which He is, if God is your God, what should you need that you don't have? You basically, because of God, because of who God is for you, you already are by the calm waters. Your pastures are always evergreen. God has provided for you everything that you need. Everything that you need is already in your life. There are starving people out there. There are people born into bondage and slavery now. There's a larger problem of slavery happening right now than in the entire 400 years of slavery in the world. The entire 400 years of American slavery. There's a larger issue now. But martyrs, saints, have a vocation. God has put the pieces in your life to trust in nothing else other than Him. And we may need to be made aware. We need to come to that awareness. But what we want is based on how our conscience is formed. It can be formed incorrectly. You could want things that are not right or just. You could want things that would destroy you and would send you to an early grave, and worse over, would send you to an eternal loss of love. You could want those things. A lot of us do. So a vocation being, well, that's not what I want to do. It's not entirely relevant what you want. It's what you were made to be. I said that in the other video. So what else is a vocation not? It's not an opportunity for you to get what you want. It's not. Like, let's say, for instance, you thought, you know what? I could be a priest. Then I would have a paycheck the rest of my life. I'd always have this. I'd always have a place to stay. I'd get my education paid for. Number one, you have no idea the salary based on the hours. You have no idea. Yes, you do make a salary, but you have no idea how it breaks down. I remember a silly lawyer complaining about, when you think about the amount of hours that I put in versus my pay, it's ridiculous. No, it's not. No, it's not. When you think of what the hours that a priest puts in based on the salary that they get, and then they're still required to live a simplistic life, that's beautiful. And you're a baby. You're a whiner. Zero sympathy for that kind of a salary. I have immense respect for the priestly salary. Because that's the shepherd. And a lot of them still donate a large percentage of the menial life that they live. Again, what I meant was I have zero sympathy for, $150,000 to $200,000 a year salary complaining about the hours that they put in. You can flop whoppers if you want your time back. So, what else is a vocation? Now, it's not about a paycheck. If you're in the religious life, you'll understand that a lot more. I was saying that the hierarchy that I was just reading about, the way it breaks down, the most radical thing you can do with your life is religious life. Because then you would take the 3 ecumenical promises, vows, chastity, obedience, and poverty. Now, a priest does not have to really take the same kind of vows, but they do take obedience to the bishop. They do promise to pray, usually the liturgy of the hours, at least morning and evening prayer, the official prayer of the Catholic Church. And then they take a pledge of simplicity. But it's not the same kind of vow that a brother or a sister takes. You take perpetual vows. It's chastity, obedience. And the obedience is to whom? Well, the superior is a representative. But you're taking that obedience to the Lord God, which means you do not have a salary. The Benedictine order is work and prayer. But silence is part of some orders. What is a vocation not? It's not a paycheck. It's not a career. It's not something you ever clock out from. Think about single life, generous single life. When should you stop giving to the poor? When should you stop tithing? If you understand that that's your vocation, never. You always have a responsibility to tithe. And tithe means what? 10%. Now, how you break that down may be interesting, but if it's not adding up to 10%, it's not a tithe. Tithe means tenth. What else is a vocation not? It's not something that God takes lightly. He made you. He made you to be. And if you understand who you are made to be, you will have. You already do have. We all have to be holy, and we will understand what we have. And we will not need for want. There's nothing that we shall want. Even if we walk through the darkest valleys of death, poverty, sickness, we will fear no evil. Where could we go that we would be outside the love of God? I said again in the other video, it's about how best do you demonstrate your love, your charitable works. Is there anything else that a vocation is not? It's not something that you can just say, well, I'll figure that out later. Even though some of us take a long time. you're always on the freeway. I cannot wait to get through the Chronicles of Narnia, because I would very much like, from first-hand knowledge, to be able to mention the thing about the stream. I listened to my Monsignor, and I can't wait to read that for myself. It's part of the reason why, in my free time, some free time, I'm right now I'm reading The Magician's Nephew, so I'm not even into The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe yet. And I'm almost positive that what he was referring to comes from later. All right, 15 minutes.